I asked which spec you wanted to see as the first hero to hero of Season 2, and the option Play Rogue You Coward came out as a clear winner.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
The suggested specs I got in the comments will be in the running for the next hero to hero, but for now, and at least until 3000 rating, I'm an Assassination Rogue. And I decided to challenge myself even more by going full immersion method actor style, by also doing solo and campaign stuff on Rogue. The only time I'm not an Assassination Rogue is when I'm giving my poor Resto Shaman some dungeon time.
Man, I don't drop character till I've done a DVD commentary.
So let's see if I can fall in love with Rogue again, and take back my Assassination Rogue complaints from these two definitely not hit pieces videos, or if I wish that my 16-year-old self hyperfixated on another class so I wouldn't have to feel guilty abandoning my OG main. So welcome to the Assassination Rogue Zero to Hero pre-season prologue episode. First, it's time for the campaign and an Assassination Rogue how to play deep dive. I read online guides and watched Whíspyr's hour-and-a-half long video while I played around in the Coiled Owl. When I tried Assassination Rogue earlier in Midnight, my main complaint was that I was constantly energy starved, which meant killing things would take forever, and even fighting single mobs in the open world was a struggle for survival. The Apex talent Implacable was the energy regen solution for Assassination Rogues, except it required getting the buff from using Envenom and then letting it fall off for 20% increased energy regen for 5 seconds. If you managed to chain more Envenoms while the bonus from Envenom was active, you got 15% extra regen, up to 80%. This was finicky to the point that people were using cancel aura macros to drop the Envenom buff early once they got to the 80%, which feels wrong on a spec where you actually want to keep the Envenom train going for as long as possible, especially because Caustic Spatter does a lot of AoE damage and Rapid Injection rewards on-time Envenom refreshes with extra damage. And the good news is that in Season 2 the Apex talent has been reworked. It now gives 2 energy per combo point spent on Envenom, a bit easier to manage, and that's for the best because this season Deathstalker, the more difficult hero spec to play, is the best pick for all content, and depending on how many targets you are fighting, it's a lot better than the more passive Fatebound. And the reason is mostly singular focus, which turns Assassination Rogues into a funnel machine because damage dealt to targets other than your mark target deals 5% plague damage to your mark target. Deathstalker is also the more defensively safe option due to the talent bait and switch, which adds a magical damage reduction to evasion and a physical damage reduction to Cloak of Shadows. And now, with better gear, the May buffs to Deathstalker and the 10% damage buff 3 weeks ago, I can finally kill things in the open world without being afraid they'll kill me first. And just this week, Assassination got another 4% damage increase, which takes the spec from B tier sleeper spec to A tier, especially in melee comps. But we'll see how that feels next episode. But what can I do this week to prepare for a flying Zero to Hero start next week? Well, I have to play the campaign. This will lead me into the Vaults of Ulatek, where I can do temple strikes and incursions, and then defeat an ancient foe for a random veteran gear drop. But the campaign quest that sends you on a tour of the vault activities also gives a bounty map, which guarantees a hero track 305 item level item at the end of a tier 8 or higher delve. If your incursion isn't bugged,
I'm gonna break my monitor, I swear!
I'll come back tomorrow.
The next day.
Oh good, it works. So the next obvious step is to level delves up to tier 8 at least to pick up my free hero item. Sadly, I'm not a sub-rogue, so I don't have So Tricky to force Valir to tank threat for me anymore, but I don't even need it this time, and I comfortably make it through the tiers. Even when this elite Hydra attacks me while I'm already fighting a Nemesis pack, I know I'm fine because I just moved my Deathstalker's mark with the unusability that was added in early Midnight, and I go into my cooldowns, blasting these snakes into the Shadow Realm. I get to the end of the delve and, oh cool, an unused trinket, sure hope it's not D tier, oh well. 305 item level. Nice. Next up is target dummy practice. I want the rotation to be automatic and I'm working on refreshing Envenom as late as possible. After a few drills of that, I return to the Coiled Owl for World Quest and then to get started on Curse Surges. Because I'll need to do 300 for that achievement that gives the title the Curse Breaker, but there are only 45-minute rotations, so please don't do the math on how long that'll take. And late breaking news, it's actually been reduced to 150 Curse Surges. Again, don't do the math on how long that'll still take. I also decided to YOLO try the single question mark difficulty of the Nemesis boss, and I got it down on my second try once I actually locked in on trying to remember and repeat the Simon part of the fight. And I did this by saying right, left, left, left out loud to myself instead of, using an add-on or raid markers. This fight, at least the easier difficulty, is more about nailing the memory game sequence and getting this interrupt than about DPS. Which is nice because the cognitive overload from raw dogging the memory game made me neglect my rotation a bit. I hope this isn't a bad omen, because the next and final step of the week is the Mythic Zero World Tour, and in Dungeons you can't just abandon your rotation when things get hectic. Last season I had a crash out trying to play Assassination Rogue in Keys because I was rusty at melee DPS, at Rogue, and I had bad gear and high expectations. I was stressed out, like probably more stressed out than when I heal.
You're literally the only person that's so stressed doing DPS. You're like this DPS, I'm so stressed. I don't have my poisons on as a rogue, as an assassin rogue.
But now I had prepped, read the guides, tested the spec, actually enjoyed playing Assassination Rogue and not just the idea of it, and when I shadow stepped into the first pack of Altar of Fangs, a rogue sleeper agent woke up in me and I achieved flow state. I mean, I should have picked the Twin Fang Harrower as my main target earlier, but I'm still learning Deathstalker, man. On Blinding Veil I murdered 2 people because I didn't know the star mechanic can't be stacked anymore like on PTR. Another S-tier cheese mechanic bites the dust. But that's what happens when you trust an Assassination Rogue.
I'm really, really, really sorry. I didn't realise that it was... I'm sorry.
Why are you laughing? It's not a funny situation.
Also, I'm glad I only finished 2 guides before the start of the season because the snitch location in Murder Row have also changed. So, once everything has settled and is up to date, more guides to follow. I finished my world tour in Temple of Sathralis, and that last fight makes me feel incredibly useless because everything dies before I can get my bleeds or envenoms off, which means I'm perpetually low on energy.
So we don't have the capacity.
To finish the week, I log into my shaman and I do 1 dungeon. Before I go, I want to briefly touch on 2 more things: raiding and my Season 2/channel plans. I haven't raided in years. In fact, the last time I raided with a guild was Heroic Vault of the Incarnates, and I was maining Outlaw/Assassination Rogue at the time. Unfortunately, I had to take some time away from the game, and when we went into Mythic, the guild and raid team kind of imploded. I haven't wanted to raid since then. I'm not a fan of raiding in general, and neither is my attention span, but like raiders feeling obligated to do Mythic Plus, it's hard to ignore raiding as a Mythic Plus player. Raiding gear is always better than Mythic Plus, but especially with the vault changes and bonus rolls, getting Mythrac versions of the best gear in the game is kinda hard to ignore. But I'm on the fence because I want to be flexible with all the specs I'm going to play as Zero to Heroes this season, and I don't want to lock in a few hours a week, so raiding guild might not be ideal. The thought of pugging raids, on the other hand, is also not great. Especially because I wouldn't be raiding for the love of the game, but as a means to an end, and I doubt that I need those DPS gains to get to Zero to Hero. If I was doing a 1% challenge, that's a different topic entirely. Curious to read what you think about this. And finally, my main goals this season are to make as many fun Zero to Hero series as I can fit in the season. So Windwalker, Mistweaver, Devoker, Provoker are all on the list. And I want to get at least 3400 on Resto Shaman again. And I've also got the other dungeon guide still planned. And my parents are on board with the whole Mythic Plus challenge. But it might take a while because they're not level 90 yet. So more on that later, but for now, happy Season 2. Thanks for watching.